just drop off. They can actually come in and shop. So that is positive. We still have a lot of work to do. The terms of reference is out in order to structure that in the way that we would want it to be more organized. But I just had to thank the general public in the manner in which they park their cars throughout this very busy season without supervision. So I just had to mention that. With regards to the road works, that is something I've been talking about for a couple of months now. As I mentioned a couple of weeks ago, the 16th of January, Winter Roads is slated to start with the island-wide road repair program, where we set our priorities already in terms of which roads need to be repaired. So just want to reiterate that the 2023 road repair program will be kicking off on January 16th. It's slated to begin on that date. My last point that I have, last week I had an interview and I talked about us cleaning up St. Martin and taking pride in our precious rock. If you pass on the road in Sucker Garden and also other main roads, you see all these trailers and chassis and containers that are being put on the side of the road. And I find it very unfortunate. We sell ourselves, not we sell ourselves. The fact is that we are a tourist destination. There are many ships in port today, and I find that it's just nasty the way certain individuals choose to mess up our image. And I urge all that have trailers parked on the side of the road to remove them immediately, because starting end of this week, we will start a joint collaboration within the different departments within the ministry to have them removed, and that will be at the owner's expense. So once again, I want to reiterate, especially in the area of Sucker Garden, where there are trailers and chassis and different things alongside the road, please have them removed. They're not only a ugly sight to see, but they're also dangerous for in the event of any sort of accidents. We all know that there are different accidents that happened in the past, and these accidents cause death based on things being on the side of the road. So once again, please have them removed before we remove them. Thank you, Rolika. That was my opening remarks, and I look forward to any questions members of the media might have.
Thank you, Minister Duran, for your opening remarks. At this time, I would like to invite the Honorable Minister of Public Health, Social Development and Labor, Omar Otley, to address you. Minister Otley, you have the floor.
Good morning, Rolika. I would like to start by wishing everyone, the general public, the members of the media, and including my colleagues, a happy and prosperous 2023. Happy New Year. Speaking of New Year, we have noticed throughout the festive season, we have seen an increase of COVID-19. While there's a message circulating of the new variant XBB 1.5 variant, that did not come from me as Minister of Public Health, but I would like to urge the public to remain vigilant, to remain focused. Let us continue to practice hygienic behavior. Let us remember, if you see anyone exhibiting flu-like symptoms, please maintain your distance. Take the proper measures to protect yourself and your loved ones. We do not want in 2023 to revert back to any of the actions that were taken. Right now, the WHO organization and PAHO are carrying out an assessment to see if any measures should be put back in place. As Minister of Public Health, I have always handled COVID-19 different. I have not measured it by, well, towards the end, have not measured it by the amount of cases, but by the hospitalization. COVID-19 is something that is a reality. I have known persons who have contracted COVID-19, not once, not twice, but 3 times, and are still here today. It is something that is in our community, and I think that we have grown to have immunity towards it. At this moment, unfortunately, there are 3 persons hospitalized in St. Martin Medical Center due to COVID-19, and I will always say that is 3 too much. There are 4 active cases that we know about. Realistically, I'm pretty sure that there's more on the island, but if they are not hospitalized, if they have not come forward, that means that persons are dealing with it within the right manner, which is stay at home, stay isolated, just for about 3 to 5 days until you have no symptoms, and then you can be free to return to work or be back out. So I just want us to remain vigilant. The last thing that we want is to move back. It's a forward trajectory for 2023. I will keep you updated as Minister of Public Health on the situation of COVID-19. I would like to touch on the AOV, AWAY, pension increase. As minister, according to Article 7, Sub 3, I am obligated and have the obligation to ensure that there is an indexation in the pension as long as there's an increase within the CPI. The advice was already approved by the Council of Ministers and sent to the Council of Advice, but as stated in the government official article, there was an issue where the law states we have to specifically use the August CPI, but we, the government of St. Martin and the Netherlands, no longer use monthly CPIs, but we use quarterly. So in discussions with His Excellency and the relevant bodies such as the SED and the Council of Advice, the LVO has been amended by the ministry and has been sent through the legislative trajectory to be changed. SZV has published the projected amounts that will be increased. We hope to have this done by the second quarter of this year, but it will have a retroactive effect as of January 1st, 2023. So I'm happy to announce that. We also have finally the health levy, the tourist levy. The draft is complete. We are going through it as the ministry to see if it's exactly what we intend it to be. This health levy or tourist levy, we are working on the name, will help generate revenue to St. Martin and help us to be more sustainable. I often believe that the burden should not be on the people of St. Martin, but those that are coming in. That's just my personal view. Let us benefit and help us get out of our financial constraints. An article went out as of January 1st, 2023. The increase of minimum wage is officially in effect. So I would like to stress to all employers to please comply with the new minimum wage. And I have stated any minimum wage earners that realize their salary has not been changed, please have the discussion with your employer. And if not, then you can take the dispute to the Labor Department. As of January 27th, I will reconvene my community day. That was something that we did throughout 2021 and 2022. We have stopped throughout the second half. It was a bit strenuous handling both ministries and to maintain community day, but we are reconvening as of January 27th. This will grant persons within the community to have an opportunity with myself to discuss any pending issues or any ideas. I cannot do it alone. I am dependent on you. You can contact me or book your appointment by phone with 520-2767 at 520-2767, or you can email at togetherwecan@gmail.com. So that's togetherwecan@gmail.com. That is it for VSR related. I look forward to any questions. I just have a quick update when it pertains to TIAT to remind the public that they can now apply for business licenses online. This service includes new business license, additional directors, and amendments to your existing license. Other services such as operational licenses and branch licenses, this will be online later on throughout the year. You can apply for this service at service.stmartingov.org. Services.stmartingov.org. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister Otley, for your opening remarks. At this time, I would like to invite the Honorable Prime Minister and Minister of General Affairs, Silveira Jacobs-Sorgessu. Prime Minister Jacobs, you have the floor.
Thank you, Rolaika. Good morning to my colleagues. Good morning to you. Good morning to the members of the media and, of course, the members of DCOM making this possible, as well as all persons of St. Martin and abroad. Following this broadcast, a happy New Year. This is our first for the year. Happy New Year is wished to one and all. These past few weeks, I've taken note of the many holiday activities which have taken place throughout the community, which the public, various families and loved ones could partake in and enjoy. I do hope and pray that at this time, or during this time, you also took time to just spend quality time with your loved ones and get some much needed rest. Work has been ongoing for several years, especially since we've been dealing with so many challenges. And at times we just need to stop, rest, and catch ourselves. And I think that was one of the main things most people tried to do this holiday season. Of course, work did not stop for the government, and we have been steadily working and continuing to push on all matters related to public service, and will continue to do so. As a matter of fact, before the holidays and during the last press briefing, I stated that the firefighters would officially be able to move back into their station. In the meantime, both them as well as the ambulance workers have moved back into the fire and ambulance building, which has been newly renovated, namely the sleeping quarters, the kitchen, recreation areas, and of course, the major challenges that had been noted with great concern regarding mold remediation, improving the airflow, cleaning to ensure the safety and health of both the firefighters and ambulance workers have been addressed and were all resolved, which allowed the officers to return. So for that, we are extremely grateful. They did so on December 21st, just before Christmas. I did do some walkthroughs then, but now that they are back in the building, I went this morning to make sure, before making any public statements, of the status of the building, and were met with good reviews. There are some small improvements that still need to be made, but that can be made while they're in the building. But I must say I'm very pleased with the progress that has been booked, thanks to the collaboration with not just what was ongoing with the trust fund, but also with building owner SOG and the Facilities Department of General Affairs, which is responsible for the small maintenance. I am happy with the improved communication and hope that this will continue so that proper maintenance of the building, its systems, and the cleaning, which are scheduled, will continue to take place to avoid any reoccurrence of the serious challenges that was experienced by our hardworking first responders. We can now focus, of course, on other more structural improvements that need to be made, not just within the building and other areas where they work, but also with their, like the Justice Ministry is doing with their expositie, etc. So those are also on the top of the priority list. I was also able to see the new ambulances that have been delivered via the trust fund, 4 new ambulances, and so congratulations. They are very excited, and congratulations to the health sector in general to continue to improve on their inventory. Though we went through a lot of hard work and time to be able to secure the needed fire engines, the fire trucks, and the ambulances, and the finalization of the building itself that was post Hurricane Irma is still to be finalized, hopefully within this month. This is now a little later than expected. We'd expected to finalize that in December, which is the roof and some other areas which have to be fact-checked to make sure everything has been covered. We'll be able to update on that as well. But thanks to the trust fund and all of the work and the priorities we put forward in making sure our first responders are now better equipped moving forward. I'm also pleased to note that we're just at the start of the first week this week, so I'll keep it light. But indeed, I'm very happy to announce that the government of St. Martin, as I promised, has taken all the necessary legal steps to remove the 12.5% cuts that were placed on our civil servants and other entities, government-owned companies and entities. And the national decree, while those have all been forwarded to His Excellency for signing, the one for the 12.5% on the civil servants is finalized and will be published hopefully today or tomorrow. And that goes, all of them go retroactive to December 31st, 2022. However, due to the fact that the amendments to the Landsnormering top incomes, which is the, what do you call that in English? Wow. The one that regulated the government-owned companies for the top management. That one was amended, and it still needs to be enacted later this month. So the retraction of the 12.5% can only be done after that has been finalized. So the process will continue as soon as it has been enacted by law. We were obligated to wait the requisite amount of weeks, which will end before the end of January 28th to be exact. Thank you, Minister of Finance. So I think those were long-awaited messages for our civil servants as well as government-owned companies who have taken the hit during the tough time to ensure that we could support those third parties, those persons in the private sector. We see that the conditions are improving in our private sector, and we have lived up to all the other obligations that we have signed on to in regards to implementing this cut. So as a government, we've taken that decision, and we stand by that and look forward to each and every person that was negatively impacted by it to see some relief, hopefully by the end of this month. I'd like to take this time to also mention that as a government, striving for good corporate governance, that we are hosting a conference on the 19th and the 20th and 21st of this month, January 2023. It's called Good Governance Days, and it will be held at the Sonesto Maho Beach Resort. We have invited all supervisory board of directors and managing directors of government-owned companies and entities, as well as, of course, the Council of Ministers who have to deal with them, as well to these conference, which we consider very, very important in ensuring that we are properly prepared to deal with all matters related to good governance in keeping the public entities up to par, ensuring that we are doing things the right way at all times. So I look forward to that conference. And with that, I will now thank you for your attention and await any further questions.
Thank you, Prime Minister Jacobs, for your opening remarks. If you've just joined us, you are watching the live Council of Ministers press briefing for today, Wednesday, January 4th, 2023. Thank you for joining us. We now move on to the question and answer session. The floor is open, and Bibi Hatshaw of SMN News, you have the floor.
Good morning, Rolika. Thank you. Happy New Year to you. Happy New Year, ministers, colleagues, and good morning. Today, I hope, Rolika, we have some extra time so we can have the loaded amount of questions that we have asked and answered. My first question, I'll pose it to the Minister of Finance and possibly the Prime Minister if she have any information on this issue. It has come to my attention, Minister, that there have been some allegations of embezzlement regarding programs at the NRPB, I believe the ESP program, that involved at least 3 politicians, and a possible court case was filed. Can you confirm, has this information gotten to you as the Council of Ministers? Minister of Finance, I also would like to know if you can tell us if all conditions regarding the loans from the Dutch government ended this year, if the 12.5% is now no longer applicable, including the 25% for politicians.
Thank you for your question, Michelle. Happy New Year to all viewing, and Happy New Year to the media and the team. In regards to the first question, there is a couple of situations, I would say, regarding the enterprise support project, government program supported by NRPP. There are some cases where persons did receive the money and did not spend the money for the intended purposes, and we are now trying to get the money back, basically. So we are. I wouldn't want to use the word embezzlement as yet. So yes, funds were given to entrepreneurs.
And are these politicians? I need to get we're in an election year. Our minister just said it, so I'd like to get that. Are these politicians that receive money for projects, did nothing with it, didn't pay back, and now we are seeing a court case?
We have persons that got funding for projects that they did not execute and have to pay back the full amount. Some have not paid back, haven't replied, and so forth. So yes, I believe the court is the next step for some of these persons. If they're politicians, I don't know who's running this year. I don't even know when the election is going to be. So I'm not going to out them like that. But yes, we do have a couple of scenarios where funds were misappropriated, and we are looking to get the funds back.
Thank you, Minister Edion. Prime Minister
In
Jacobs.
regards to the conditions, all conditions that the Prime Minister mentioned, the 25%, 12.5%, all of the conditions should be lifted at the end of this month once the governor signs the LBAs. In regards to the loans, I don't really understand that question. But
The conditions were for the,
yes, yeah.
so that's what I'm asking, if these conditions are now lifted this year.
Prime Minister Jacobs?
Yes, I only needed to clarify that the ESP program, to be clear, what was being asked is an entrepreneurship program which government made available as a priority via the trust fund. So persons with a business idea, with a business plan, had to go through a whole process to apply for a loan/grant to be able to execute or expand their businesses. There are checks and balances in place, and so the checks and balances have been ongoing. We have been encouraging persons, and there are still funds available to make use of this opportunity because we're trying to grow entrepreneurship. It's a St. Martin thing. Of course, in all things, in the checks and balances, they have noted that certain persons did not make use of the funds as they intended. Reporting has to take place, etc. And so we will receive reports as government, but the names of the entrepreneurs will not be shared with government. You might see a business name, but you're not going to see the name of the person behind the business. It is, we have a toezicht. You have a toezicht. Oversight function as government. We are not involved in the day-to-day running, and the NRPB has to do its due diligence because any funds misspent in our agreement will be governments to recover if it cannot be recovered. So it becomes our problem. So I'm going to just, through this medium, implore all those persons who received good funds to be able to execute your businesses, to do your due diligence to avoid any further negative impacts to yourself as well as to the community.
Thank you, Prime Minister Jacobs. Minister Edion?
Yes, and on the last note by the Prime Minister, in addition to that, yes, the government is then finally accountable and would then also then potentially have to take legal actions to receive the money, just to be very clear. So we don't want to continue to have these scenarios play forward. So I think it's good that they basically came up that no money is free, right? Once you get a loan, in Dutch they say geen krediet is I forget the word what they say in Dutch, but in Holland I always say no credit is free, right? So once you get the funds, expect that there are consequences if you don't use the funds for the intended purposes. And I must say that based on information given to government, the NRPB has taken a very long route before it reached to this point. It's not that 1 week or 2 weeks passed. No, I think it's 6 months to almost a year of discussing, negotiating, in emails back and forth. So the NRPB was very lenient in this process, and we're asking all those that did receive funds to execute the task, or at the very least communicate with the NRPB on your deficiencies or lack of being able to execute your projects.
Thank you, Minister Edion and Prime Minister Jacobs, for the responses. I would now like to invite Lyndon Brown of BCN TV. You have the floor.
Good morning to the people of St. Martin. It's a new year. Question to the Minister of Health, Minister Utley. And we are diving in the airport. The Turkish Dutch company who are refurbishing the airport. What have been said so far, there are racism. There are also health aspect. The people that are working, they have respiratory illness. And for 6 weeks, the painters did not receive their salary. Minister Utley, what do you know about these allegations?
Happy New Year once again, Mr. Brown. None of these allegations was brought forward to me. What I do encourage is, if this is the case, I will definitely look into it immediately, but none of these allegations was brought up to me in my recent update. As of my last contact with the airport was last week. So none of this was brought up, but I will look into it to see if this is indeed factual. Thank you for bringing it to my attention.
Thank you, Minister Otley. We now move on to the second round. Bibi, you have the floor.
Thank you, Rolika. My question is to the Prime Minister. Prime Minister Jacobs, I sent you some questions just prior to the Christmas holiday regarding election date. Can you tell us if this matter was discussed in the Council of Ministers? Has there been a decision? Can you tell us if a date has been set? Is it going to be January 2024? Is it going to be November? Is this asking for clarity?
Are supposed January of 20. Announcements are made. The next election is scheduled for January 2024. Yes, we have been discussing about no decisions. Discussions were ongoing based on how it went during that last election, which we all know was a snap election, and it happening, all the campaigning, etc., over the Christmas holidays. But I have requested and received some advice in terms of what would be the repercussions of calling an early election for that reason. And it would be the same as, basically it boils down to any other quote-unquote snap election. So we will have to continue to have the discussions to see what it is the decision will be. Until that time, the elections are scheduled for January 2024. So you're a year out, so it's a year. You know how the last year goes.
Thank you, Prime Minister Jacobs. Thank you, Bibi. Lyndon, you have the floor.
Question to the Minister of Justice. Minister of Justice, well, it have been take years that the function book didn't, well, up to now it's still pending because there's a document at the Governor's office right now to be signed. Minister of Justice, would you take any blame for any delay in the function books? I mean, of course, the law enforcement officers may just react emotionally, maybe not personally. But would you blame yourself for the function book delay?
Which delay are you referring to? The one that's 10 years old or the one that's now? I take 12 years old. Which one?
Which of them you take blame?
I take full
for?
responsibility for my ministry. I take full responsibility for my officers. I understand their grievances. I've seen salary slips. And this is why I'm so passionate about getting it done, because at the end of the day, I recognize their grievances and they're valid. But I also want, and I've said this before, I am not going to do anything that is illegal. I'm not going to do anything that is quick, that is going to mislead the officers in believing that what is being signed for them is accurate, and then later on they find out not. At the end of the day, we are living in a country like any other country in the world. I always say this. We have laws, we have rules, we have regulations. And I said it from the onset, I am going to follow the proper trajectory so that we get this thing done and done correctly. And I understand that it's taking a long time, but at the end of the day, we have done everything that we are supposed to do. The function book is done. The police law itself is done. The salary scales are done. However, the Excellency is saying he wants to be able to get the total calculation so we know what this country is owed to pay the personnel. It is very important. And this isn't government's money that's paying. Whose government's money? Government's money is taxpayers' money. So this is relevant to the taxpayers of this country as well too also. And that is why I also push compliance. This is where, you know, the discussion about immigration comes up. At the end of the day, we all love St. Martin. We all live. We all have to contribute because our men and women that are on the front line for us deserve to be compensated fairly. But the country has to be able to self-sustain and be able to afford these things. So the governor wants to know and make sure that the Minister of Finance is aware how much our budgets on an annual basis for the next few years is taken into consideration so that our officers are paid correctly. I take full responsibility for my ministry and getting it done. Thank you very much, Minister.
Thank you, Minister Richardson. We now move on to the third round. Bibi, you have the floor.
Thank you, Relaika. Minister of Finance, can you tell us if the budget amendment 2022 have been approved by the CFT? And when is the capital expenditure will come online for the investment projects?
In regards to budget 2022 being approved by CFT, I believe we got to Article 11 for that. I have to confirm. They were not in agreement with the amount we had in the budget deficit. They wanted an amount of 40 million. We had a substantial higher amount. The capital expenditure that we have for 2022 basically was agreed by them prior to the budget being approved, but since the budget has not been approved, it would not, more than likely, would not be given a recommendation, a positive recommendation to have it executed for 2022. And seeing that we are in 2023, all of the capital expenditures from 2022 have been shifted over to 2023. We've had a discussion with them already. They are basically already in agreement with them since they already had basically approved them since about April in regards to projects that are properly substantiated. And we are finalizing the process now of budget 2023. I believe we are less than a week away to submit it to CFT and the Council of Advice.
Thank you, Minister. Thank you, Bibi. Lyndon, you have the floor.
Question to the Prime Minister. Minister, in regards to the apology of the Dutch government for committing a crime against humanity, Minister, you had to be applauded in some instance that Aruba was readily accept the apology, but you collaborate, Prime Minister, with CARICOM. President of CARICOM, the head of CARICOM is in the Republic of Guyana, which the outgoing CARICOM chairman is from Suriname. And now the CARICOM emphasized 10 points to that they're discussing, Minister. Do you aware of the 10 points? You may not have a lot of time, but would you like to briefly inform the people what is pending?
Thank you, Mr. Brown, for your interest in the topic and hopefully understanding the stance St. Martin has taken. We have heard the apology. We acknowledge that an apology was made. We have been in discussions and are going to further collaborate, not just with CARICOM, but with the Reparations Commission of CARICOM, which not only has a 10-point plan for reparations, but also has several recommendations that they have made specific to this case. It was in draft form by the time the apology was issued on the 19th of December, and so we were only able to peruse it and look at it briefly. But as I mentioned before, we're in the process of establishing St. Martin's own Slavery Atonement and Reparations Committee, which will then have the, let's say, the mandate to meet with like-minded organizations throughout the kingdom, in the Caribbean, etc., to ensure that St. Martin's government takes the decision very keenly with proper research and involvement of the community. So that's where we are now. We're at the start of a process, and internationally there's been a lot said about it as well, and I look forward to seeing where this apology will go.
Thank you, Prime Minister Jacobs. We now move on to the final round of questions. Bibi, you have the floor.
Thank you, Relaika. My last question is for the Minister of Romy. Minister Doran, recently there was a verdict handed down by the Court of Appeals with regard to the Secretary General. Can you tell us what's the way forward? How is your ministry going to handle this verdict and the current situation with the Secretary General? And regarding trench cleaning and district cleaning, the contracts for those, you had said prior that it would have been, those contracts would have been distributed in January. Can you tell us if those are prepared and if it's ready?
I'll start with the second question first. I mentioned that it is our goal to have it completed by January, which it still is. We're now in the final stages of the evaluation. A couple of months ago, I mentioned that we commissioned SOAB to assist us with, in terms of evaluating, setting policies, and having a sort of a steady framework, assisting us then with improving our framework that we have in order for it to continue as we go along when it comes to bidding, etc., in anticipation of the general law in terms of open amber stating, which falls on the purview of a sort of collaboration with finance and also general affairs. So in anticipation of that, SYB has been assisting us very much within the different departments where that is concerned. So it is our goal still to have it completed by this month in order to distribute the contracts as soon as possible. In regards to the first question that you posed regarding the Secretary General, as I mentioned over the last 2 years, that no win is a win, no matter what, and there's no loss here. The only loss is that the image of the ministry and also that of government. Yes, the Court of Appeal overruled the previous judgment which upheld the Landsberg slide, but in this Court of Appeals, it also stated that a clear-cut dereliction of duty was committed. So the crime, it was committed, it was proven as well. It's just that the punishment didn't, in the opinion of the Court of Appeals, did not match, the punishment didn't match the crime, so to speak. So we're right now, as a council of ministers, given the fact that this is a high-level civil servant, it's not just a staff member, we're discussing the way forward, and that will be communicated to the respective individual as soon that is clear on our end. As I mentioned, it's not really something public, it's a HR matter, and I don't really want to make it a public debate to go too in-depth with the details, but this will definitely be communicated. I had some time to go through the verdict, so I just wanted to make that clear because also in the newspaper as well, they made it seem as if government lost the case. The decision was made based on the dereliction of duty, which was proven, upheld, just that the punishment should be different based on the opinion of the courts. And we'll be moving forward with that decision and then make it known to the person as soon as possible. Thank you for your question.
Thank you, Minister Duran, and thank you, Bibi. Lyndon, you have the final question.
Question to the Minister of Health. Minister of Health, this is a pending question, Minister. I mean, it will not over very soon. Minister, the COVID, the people are concerned, and what they're saying, it's going to come back the same way it was 3 years ago, Minister. Up to now, people are still distressed and sad because their loved ones have passed away. They are still feeling the pain. The only time that the people are saying that there was no autopsy, so they don't know exactly what their loved one have passed away with, what was the situation. And now, Minister, we have seen the development in Europe, in France and other countries. I mean, I with the people, for the people, and I hear what the people are saying every day. They are getting angry because this is what they're saying. Again, we don't want to go back to that condition. It was gruesome. What do you have to tell people, Minister? There are a lot of angry people. Can you calm them down?
I won't necessarily call them angry. I think they're concerned. COVID-19 was a trauma, like the whole experience was traumatizing. For us to lose over 80 persons, some people were lost within a week. So it is traumatizing and families are still healing. So anytime you see a possibility of this reoccurring, you get concerned, you get anxious. So I won't say they're angry because it's nothing that none of us can control. As much as I can try, I can't stop it. I can't stop it. But we can only work together. I think now we're 3 years in, we know what to do, we know how to do it, we know what steps to take. And we pray, and as we see, we have a great season ahead of us, and we have influx of thousands and thousands of tourists. We can only pray and practice safety. As stated, I will continue to monitor. I will continue to look at hospitalizations. I will continue to speak with CPS, speak with stakeholders, RIVM, and the medical center to ensure that we keep St. Martin as safe as possible. And if any new development should come about, you will definitely hear about it. But for now, I will urge the public, do not panic. Do not panic. We know what to do. I have always been upfront. I have always stated that COVID is something that's going to be around forever for the rest of our life, and that's the reality of it. So let us not panic, but revert back to what we have learned and what we know. And those who are interested in the vaccination, there is still availability, there's still time to get vaccinated. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister Otley. Members of the media, this does bring us to the end of the question and answer session. Any further questions can be sent to the Minister's Cabinet in writing. Honorable Ministers of the Council, members of the media, radio listeners, and online viewers, this brings us to the end of the live Council of Ministers press briefing for today, Wednesday, January 4th, 2023. For rebroadcast, tune into St. Martin Gov Radio via 107.9 FM, Telemstel TV Plus, the official Facebook page of the Government of St. Martin, YouTube channel Government of St. Martin, and TV 15. For video on demand, log on to the Government of St. Martin's YouTube channel. On behalf of the Department of Communication and the Government of St. Martin, I'm Rolika Roach and wishing you a pleasant day further.